Hi everyone, welcome back to my stories. No voiceovers, no dialogues, just moments, and what they make you feel. Today's story begins with cucumbers in a garden, children laughing on a Sunday, and a quiet woman making cakes with her hands. But not everything stays warm. A stranger watches. A mother warns. Something unspoken unfolds. A new idea is planted, a connection is tested, and Tu Tieu keeps walking. Hit subscribe, and stay with me through the silence. The morning drifted by in moist, quiet air. Tu Tieu knelt beside her garden, fingers pressing seeds gently into the soil as if entrusting silent hopes to the earth. There was no rush. No noise, only her steady breath and the faint shift of soil beneath her hands. Tiny cucumber sprouts had begun to break through, a gentle answer from nature. She lingered by the garden bed, gaze distant yet calm. Every dig of her hand, every pass through the soil, carried something soft, like she was healing herself with each movement. In the distance, children's laughter echoed down the lane, bringing with it another rhythm of life, innocent and bright, in contrast to the quiet solitude she held close. Tu Tieu looked at the garden, sparse, unfinished, but her heart remained patient. Not everyone chooses to begin again with seeds, but she had, for life. For something unnamed that still stirred inside her. And so, the garden was more than a place to grow vegetables. It was a space where Tu Tieu buried her losses and nurtured something new. In the stillness, a quiet season of hope was beginning to take root. Tiny footsteps echoed along the damp earth path. A group of children ran in, their laughter spilling into the garden like a gust of childhood wind. Tu Tieu stood up, brushed the soil from her hands, and her gaze softened as she saw them. No greeting was needed. Their presence alone was the sunlight she hadn't asked for. The kids gathered around, full of questions about the sprouting plants, staring at the cucumbers like they were witnessing magic. One child without shoes, another with muddy clothes, clumsy, messy, but completely genuine. Tu Tieu gently guided each one, her hands patient, as if planting something else in their hearts. Warmth, wonder, and the quiet meaning behind nurturing life. Their eyes lit up when she mentioned making fried cakes. The air filled instantly with cheerful voices. Yes, please. I like that. Innocent reactions, pure and unfiltered, seemed to peel away the layers of loneliness that had clung to Tu Tieu for so long. None of them knew it, but their presence gave her something she hadn't dared to need. A reminder that life still surrounded her. As the children washed their hands and waited on the porch, time seemed to slow. Tu Tieu watched their young faces and, for a brief moment, felt peace. Perhaps these simple things, a clumsy question, a dirt-streaked smile, were what made someone want to stay. The small kitchen came alive with the scent of flour, onions, and thyme woven into cloth and skin. Tu Tieu stood at the counter, hands damp with water, kneading pale dough in slow, steady motions. Each movement was quiet, deliberate, a silent ritual between her and herself. Every gesture held a memory, old habits, quiet intentions. She prepared the filling, chopped onions, wood ear mushrooms, vermicelli. each ingredient sliced thin and sautéed over a soft flame. The children still laughed and played outside. But inside, Tu Tieu existed in another world, one where every bit of gentleness was folded into the dough. She shaped each piece carefully, the crusts unique, as if honoring the different spirits of the children waiting. When the first batch turned golden and crisp, her gaze lingered, a flicker of pride, a soft release. The children returned, hands washed, gloves on, lining up for the cakes. Tu Tieu sat nearby, quietly watching. No one said thank you. They didn't need to. Their eyes sparkled. One handed her a cake and insisted she try her own creation. It felt like a small dream, one she thought she had long lost. In that moment, something softened inside her, as if from the most ordinary ingredients, she had managed to shape something far more rare. Connection. The rain-soaked path cast a muted chill over the scene. Tu Tieu walked quietly, carrying a bag of freshly made fried cakes, heading toward the old fisherman's house. Each step held a quiet intention, a gift, a kind visit. Then, up ahead, a woman stood waiting. Familiar eyes, but not warm ones. It was Yuri's mother. Her gaze was sharp, her voice colder than the rain around them. No greetings, no pretense, only cutting words that struck directly at Tu Tieu's chest. Stay away from Yuri. He already has someone chosen for him. Tu Tieu stood still, her hand tightening around the bag's handle. The wind tugged at her coat, but couldn't still the rising tide inside her. Every word from the woman landed like a blade not fueled by rage, but by authority. This wasn't emotion, it was control. Yuri's mother didn't speak of love or hurt. She spoke of arrangement, of decision. She wanted Tu Tieu gone not out of fear, but convenience. No one else was there, no witnesses, just Tu Tieu facing that quiet, familiar weight of judgment. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. But her eyes, calm as they were, no longer held surrender. In the cold drizzle, something cracked open. Quietly, but irreversibly. Just as tension thickened, a figure stepped in from across the road. The man, Tu Tieu, once saved a stranger then, but not now. He didn't speak immediately. He simply stood, watching the sharp exchange between her and the older woman. Then, without hesitation, he moved closer, something instinctive, unspoken. The air fractured. He interrupted the confrontation, calm but unwavering. No dramatics, no raised voice. Just steady eyes and a few firm words enough to cause Yuri's mother to falter, just briefly. She turned away, but her final words still cut. I won't let you and your mother live in peace. Tu Tieu said nothing. The man turned to her, asked gently if she was all right. She shook her head. Not in pain, but as if to say, don't ask. Not now. He offered to walk with her. She declined softly, but firmly. It wasn't pride. It was something deeper, something still buried. He stood, watching as she walked off into the drizzle, her small frame fading into the gray, becoming less visible with each step. Yet inside him, something shifted. Not out of pity, not out of debt, but from a quiet desire to be a presence she could lean on. Silent, but real. After the rain, the sky didn't clear, but a muted warmth settled over Tu Tieu's land. The man stood beside his colleague, Agan. They didn't speak of what had happened earlier. no mention of confrontations or unspoken wounds. Instead, they talked about soil, about silkworms, about mulberry trees. He pointed at different corners of the plot, measuring moisture, texture, adaptability. It wasn't just an agricultural survey. Beneath every word was intention, to build something lasting for Tu Tieu. Quiet, but purposeful. Egan nodded, offering suggestions. They discussed test planting, techniques, visiting local farmers. Each plan felt simple on the surface, but carried weight as if laying a quiet foundation for someone trying to stay standing. They didn't name it aloud that this land belonged to a woman grasping at renewal, but it lingered behind every decision, every careful thought. The soil beneath their feet was still damp, but in the man's imagination, the rows were already green, the silkworms already spinning, and Tu Tieu no longer alone in that fragile garden. Not everyone sees new beginnings in broken places, but perhaps those who've fractured once know best how much it matters to start again. A pale gray sky hung low over the riverside. Tu Tieu stood before the small, weathered house, a bag of fried cakes cooling in her hands. She knocked gently. Moments later, the old fisherman opened the door, his smile slow, like the lazy ripple of water behind him. She sat beside him, near a freshly built wooden bridge, still holding the scent of new timber. No words needed. They sat in silence, watching the current pass, sipping plain tea. Tu Tieu unpacked the cakes, laying them out one by one. The old man ate slowly, his eyes reflecting something distant and near, as if he tasted not just the food, but the heart folded inside it. No one mentioned Uri. No one spoke of the harsh encounter earlier, but this calm in each quiet movement, each unforced pause was her unspoken message. Gratitude, respect, and the effort to hold on to something slowly slipping away. Beside her, the old man said nothing. No advice, no judgment. Just presence anchoring her against the drift of these uncertain days. In that brief moment, without noise or effort, Tu Tieu found a piece of peace again, fragile but true.